I'd like to call the January 3rd, 2023 meeting of the City Council for the City of Lake City to order. If everyone would stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation to be given by Pastor Pamela Green with Trinity United Methodist Church.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lord of heaven and earth, I pray that as we search for answers to the challenges before us, you imbue our hearts and minds with your knowledge and your will. Send your Holy Spirit right now, Lord, to help us discover your divine treasure. May we be able to sift through all that we read to find the gems of your kingdom and your will. Lord, we do not long for the wisdom that leads to power or fortune, but the wisdom that leads to faith, love, and good stewardship over that which you have given us to govern. Guide our pathway as we thirst for your truth. May we drink from your word and pour out this heavenly wisdom on us. Your wisdom nurtures life, faith, truth, love, and kindness into the hearts and lives of all who are present here tonight, and for those whom we are their voice. Tonight, dear Lord, as they are the voice of the people for whom they have been elected to speak, let their decisions be guided by principled leadership, strong moral character, and the good of all the citizens in Lake City. It is in the matchless name of your Son, and in the fullness of your loving kindness, let all of us who love the Lord and are guided by his word, let us say together, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Ms. Sykes, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Jernigan?
Here.
Mr. Hill?
Here.
Ms. Young? Mr. Sampson?
Here.
Mayor Witt?
Here.
Mr. Dial?
Here.
Mr. Kennon?
Here.
Chief Butler?
Ladies and gentlemen, the Lake City Council has opened this public meeting. Since 1968, the city code has prohibited any person from making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks or becoming boisterous while addressing the city council. Yelling or making audible comments from the audience constitutes boisterous conduct. Such conduct will not be tolerated. There's only one approved manner of addressing the city council, that is to be recognized and speak from the podium. As a reminder, persons are not to openly carry a handgun or carry a concealed weapon or firearm while the governing body is meeting. Item 1 is December 19th, 2022 minutes from the regular session.
Move to approve the minutes of public.
Second.
Motion is second to approve the minutes as published. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next is approval of the agenda. I don't know of any changes.
I don't think we do have one change. Mr. Dial, do we have the one thing that needed to come off the agenda?
Yes, the item number 3 under presentations, they had the dates wrong, so they will not be here tonight for the presentation for the
So
interim.
we're removing item 3.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so with that amendment, is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved, Mayor.
Second.
Motion is second to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor say aye. Opposed, like sign. Okay, public participation, persons wishing to address council. The last couple of meetings, we've kind of had several people go over the 3 minutes and kind of had gotten pretty good at it. So if everybody would try to stay within the 3 minutes and watch the clock so we can get through and nobody's getting an advantage over somebody else. First person I have signed up to speak is Barbara Limley.
Barbara Lumley. I reside in the county, have our own property in the city. And it really irritates me that the council people are elected and I have no control or issue or no situation to vote you guys in or vote you guys out. But you know, you have taken an oath of office to uphold. And from all the things I hear and read, and people who don't come to the meetings but know that I live here in Lake City, want to know why the council cannot follow the rules, why they make exceptions for the city manager, make exception for this, aren't aware of what's going on with the lease at HACO. And you guys just need to look back at yourselves from the other side of the fence because you're starting to look like a laughing stock. Thank you.
Okay. Next is Reverend Dr. Pamela Green.
Yes, being new to Lake City, I'm not 100% sure of procedures, and so thank you so much for allowing me. Pamela Green, 1145 Northeast Bascom Norris Drive. I'm not 100% sure on the procedures for voting. I'm not sure what not speaking when the vote is asked, when persons who are elected to speak for the people don't answer. It's confusing to me, and I'm not exactly sure what that means. If you have been elected and people have taken their time to come to the polls and vote, you're their voice. So let's use that voice and let's speak for the people. I don't believe that you're up here just to sit and be silent. It's not fair to the people. And it is my prayer, along with the prayer that I gave earlier, that we use our wisdom. It is not fair to sit in that seat and not vote.
Thank you. Vanessa George.
That's George 930 Northeast Joe Coney. I want to address two issues. First issue I would like to address is this letter from the County Board of Commissioners. Now, last meeting y'all dealt with this, so y'all basically gonna get pushed and bullied into and I want to talk about it on item 10, into giving them what they want when y'all already said y'all had other stuff going on, and I see now they want to pack the house, but you can't get them to come in here for nothing else, not even to work with y'all on certain things, and now they want to pack the house because they want Richardson. I want to know what's the rush, and it seems like, and I'm gonna be very transparent. Y'all got somebody infiltrating. It looks like Mr. Sampson is the 6th commissioner, because it seems like he's keep pushing everything, the agenda of the county and not the city. Everything that comes to y'all from the county seems like it's coming from Mr. Sampson. Now, the second issue I want to address is with the committees. I submitted 11 applications, one for planning and zoning, beautification, it was 4 for community redevelopment, and the advisory committee, and the charter review 2. We have not heard anything on these committees. Y'all said y'all needed people for the committees. I said I'll go out into my community and get people, because they were not aware of these, because y'all was doing it by word of mouth. So then when we start telling people, we haven't heard anything about these committees. What's the status? What's going on?
We need to amend the ordinance on our committees, and then we're gonna need to do an ordinance on it.
What you mean by amend the ordinance? What you gotta change? What you gotta amend?
There's several issues with them that over the years have gotten conflicts.
So you're gonna have what, workshops or something on?
I don't know if we're gonna have workshops.
I mean, y'all gonna discuss them in the sunshine?
Yeah. Okay, Sylvester Warren.
Ma'am, before I get to the podium, I got a few entries, so I'm gonna ask you if you'd be gracious enough to give me a little courtesy similar to you gave Nick Patel when he was here, just to sign up to speak, and he went over his minutes because he was passionate about the gas station that was going out on Highway 90. And so I would ask for a little bit of grace if I happen to go over my time. Just consider me as similar to a Nick Patel, if you would.
Okay, do the best you can.
Yes, sir. The first thing that I want to say is Happy New Year's to you, Mr. Mayor, and the council. And I think 23 is going to be a beautiful year. Despite what some people may say that live outside the county, I live in the city. And I'm extremely proud of this new council. And what people don't understand is there's new people in new seats, and so there's not gonna be perfection. And we're not looking for perfection, but we're looking for the best decision that we can get made. And in government and in politics, there's supposed to be discussion and there's supposed to be back and forth. And I wanna say that I appreciate the negotiations that have gone on between Mr. Hill and the city attorney, and the negotiations that have been going on currently with Mr. Journey and Councilman Journey and then Council Hill with the city attorney. It takes, as a businessman myself, it takes back and forth to get to a number or to get to agreement. And so to criticize people that we're elected to go out and do the best job they can and bring us back the best contract they can, that's not their fault. That's called negotiation. And if anybody can't understand that, then they need to go back and start school all over again. So I thank them for the job they have done. I think we've gotten to a point, looking at the agenda packet, that we had an ideal number that this council can live with, and that this community, city community, can have some stability, and we can finally have us a captain and a pilot to drive our plane. Also, Mr. Mayor, second from that, I find it very offensive that we're still dealing with petty issues like Richardson Community Center when no city person in no city capacity has said anything about the county spending money out there. They've been spending money out there. They spend money on places they don't own, way more money than they spend out at the Richardson Community Center. And I'm gonna tell you another thing, Mayor. It's mighty funny and it's very disrespectful that we got a council person in District 10 elected who is over the Richardson Community Center because it sits in District 10. And Mr. Sampson claimed he respect women, but he overlooked the woman that represents that community in which that
Mr. Mayor, point of order. Point of order.
Wait, hold up.
I'm talking, Mr.
You
Mayor.
can't talk about me and relationships with women, that's not correct.
Okay, let's just keep
You need to keep it to the
by the
rules.
issues. Let's
Keep it to the rules.
The issue is, Mr. Mayor, that, Mr. Mayor, let me ask you a question. What does the Richards community sit? Does it sit in District 10 or does it sit in Mr. Sampson district? It sits in Ms. Chevelle Young district, and that's who we elected. And anybody who overlooked her to have this meeting, it shows the level of disrespect that they have for her title in that community. And we got bigger fish to fry, Mayor. This item should not be on the agenda. They gave us a letter weeks ago. We rescinded it. They sent us another letter. And tonight, we need to do the same exact thing. We will get with them when it's necessary. We got bigger fish to fry in this city. We got jobs to save and a city manager to hire, Mayor. And they can wait on that. It's plenty of grants that need to be done out there. It's property they hadn't even acquired from the deeds nor the combs. And there's still an environmental study that needs to be done. And also, Mayor, we got a grant that we need to implement. And that letter they gave in from FDL that says that we can't give them the property, that's something that they encourage. We don't have to give the property. We got the grant, we got the property, they can administer the grant, things can stay the same. And so packing the house should not sway us any different than what it did when they sent that weak letter weeks ago. We need to move on with business and let the county know they don't run us. We'll get with them when it's necessary and when we reach that point in making that decision, if we reach such a point. Thank you, Mayor.
Right. Yeah, that's all I have signed up at this time, so we will move on to approval of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mayor, make a motion to approve the consent agenda is published.
Second.
Motion second to approve the consent agenda, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Okay, presentations, item 3 has been withdrawn, item 4 is Jennifer Daniels, Columbia County Economic Development.
Good evening, Council. Jennifer Daniels with Columbia County Economic Development Specialist. I was asked to come give you an update on some of the projects that we're working on, so some good news, right, for a change. Just a little bit of an overview. 2021, we ended with 40 projects on the books, and what that means is I submitted 40 responses for projects throughout the county, north, south, everywhere in between. Some land, some don't. It's the nature of the business, right? It's very competitive. So I bring up 2021 because in 2022, several of those actually came to fruition. So in 2022, we ended with 31 projects on the books. Out of those, the committed projects, we're looking at about $87 million in capital investment that will be invested into Columbia County. Total of about 150 new jobs that will be created. Active, but no letter of intent. So what I mean by that is these are projects that we're currently still working that are very probable. However, we don't have a commitment just yet. Those projects total about 110 million in capital investment with about 275 new jobs. So what do those projects look like? The Bell Road Corridor, project illumination was an FPL project. It actually is in city limits. It's about $35 million capital investment, and what that does is give a centralized location for FPL and disaster response. So it'll take some of that traffic that's at the fairgrounds and put it out on the Bell Road Corridor. They've filed for permits. Actually, they went through zoning, that was approved. They're looking to break ground sometime this quarter, 2023. Western side of Columbia County, we've got an international distribution project that's currently leasing warehouse space. They are looking for a permanent location to build a site, but right now they're leasing, looking to build about a $10 million warehouse and invest and continue growing. Right now they employ about 10 people, but that'll grow when they move into a larger facility. Eastern side of the county, you may have heard U.S. Cold Storage expanded a couple of times. They finished their Railsburg expansion. It was about a $3 million project that allows them to bring in business from the Northwest, specifically potatoes. So if you like French fries, that's for you, right? In addition to that, we also incentivized another local company, Robbins Manufacturing, out on the east side as well. Working with the city, Project Lyman was a smaller company that is leasing a space that they sell transmissions, things for linemen that work on poles for FPL, other electric providers, excuse me. Project Beehive is kind of a new one. It's a rail partner. This company is looking to invest and help build out the rail within the industrial park. U.S. Cold Storage had another expansion. This one significantly larger, $46 million. They're adding another facility, building onto the facility that they have, investing in the equipment. It's going to be more automated. However, it doesn't reduce jobs. It actually adds jobs. It's just a higher skill set. So what they'll do is they'll bring people in, train them to use this equipment specifically, which in turn is going to pay more money. Southern side of the county, and this is something that I think everyone here is excited about. A couple of projects that we have that have not quite made the finish line yet, but they're right there. If we talk about 4775, both sides of the interstate, on the southeast side and on the southwest side, there's commercial and retail developments that are just waiting to happen. The thing holding those up is the infrastructure, right? And we've been working with the city to build that out, to bring sewer to those projects so they could build. One of the things that I would like to mention is that the Florida Jobs Growth Grant has funding available. If the council would be willing to listen, the county would like to submit a grant on the city's behalf to bring sewer from the other side of 47 under the highway to both of those sides of development. So essentially connecting from, is it Arrowhead and Ring Power under 47 to the other side, so both of those developments will have sewer that they can patch into, right? Just food for thought there. We can talk about that a little bit later, but there's funding there that's available, and the utilities do belong to the city, so the county would be interested in partnering with the city in that endeavor. A couple of other things I just want to let you know. We do have a $65,000 planning grant that is expanding or planning the expansion of the Bell Road corridor. So essentially what we're doing is looking at future land uses and making sure that everything is in line with the development in that area. Just want to remind you that the city does have a seat on the Economic Development Board, and they do attend our meetings. When Mr. Dial can't attend, he sends someone in his stead. So you do have representation on our board, and we welcome. Lastly, I just want to thank the council for inviting us into your development meetings. You meet bi-weekly, and when I don't have conflicts, I'm there. So any questions, anything you need to know, my office is always open.
I can, just want to be clear about this, these jobs. these jobs have nothing to do with HECO, correct?
Correct,
Okay, good. Now,
absolutely not.
again, the city doesn't have anything to do with this, but I see it's quite a few county commissioners in here and Mr. Kraus. I'm just asking a question. Is there any plans, now this is Councilman Hill talking, are there any plans in the near future for some bathrooms at the park? And the reason why I'm asking that question, I'm saying that, and I'm gonna repeat myself again. The county have made a nice park out of it. And the only thing that park is lacking is some restrooms. And I'm just asking, is there any restrooms in the future?
I'll defer that to Mr. Kraus when he comes up later. You know, my goal, my job is to bring businesses and industry, create jobs, increase our GDP, you know, increase the funding throughout the county. And it does, our recreation does play a part in that. However, it's more of a tourist development, and I'll defer that to Mr. Kraus.
And I'm sorry if I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, not at all. Valid
Mr.
question.
Mayor.
Yeah.
So I know she mentioned the Florida Jobs Growth Grant for the sewer underneath 4775. I'd recommend that we move forward on that. I mean, anywhere we can get some non-city funds to help pay for infrastructure on city utilities sounds like a good thing to pursue.
Absolutely.
As the council knows, we're experienced in that. We have recently closed out one. We still have one open. And, you know, we are vested in that project as well. So
Well, I
we
thought
worked
that,
well together on Bella Road. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I thought that sometime last year, didn't you get with the counties? Because I was in some meeting where this came up about the sewer going under 75. Wasn't that sometime last year?
Yes, sir, Mr. Hill, we've been discussing this for quite some time, and the development in that area has changed several times, as Ms. Daniels has alluded to. Now there seems to be a more concrete plan of what is going to go there, and we've actually got with engineers trying to get an estimated cost. I don't know if we got that today or not, but we are looking at the engineering to get an estimated cost. I have talked to Mr. Kraus about, you know, the grant that you're referring to, because it is going to be quite expensive to get lift stations there and to get up under the road, and that's why we're trying to look for any additional funding. But at the point we're at right now, we are more concrete than we were before. We thought I guess it's been about a year and a half, maybe, we thought we had a pretty solid company coming in. We had met with them several times, and then at the very end, they pulled out, which changed our direction on what we wanted to do. Now our focus has changed more what I would call the south side, east side of 75 on the north side. And that's what Jennifer was alluding to a while ago, that we have some pretty significant estimations that these companies will come here. That's why we're trying to push ahead as much as we can with availability of sewer right now.
If I can add to Mr. Dial's point, actually spoke with both developers earlier today just to get an idea of their timelines. And on the side that you're speaking about now, they are anticipating being ready to file for permits within 60 to 90 days and looking to start construction this time next year on that development. On the other side, the Cornerstone Crossing development that everyone's familiar with, they have several letters of intent that they've not responded to because they can't line up a timeline for water and sewer. So there's projects waiting on both sides as long as we can get infrastructure to them.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Kraus, did you want to speak?
Just for 1 second. Mayor, the reason the grant came up tonight is because we just discovered last week that the state did not expend all of their Florida Jobs Growth Grant funds. So there are funds available today that will expire at the end of the state's fiscal year. So you are eligible for those funds if you choose to apply for them.
Thank you. Okay, under ordinances, we're to open a public hearing, City Council Ordinance 2022-2235 on final reading. Mr. Kenny, would you read that by title?
City Council Ordinance number 2022-2235, an ordinance of the City of Lake City, Florida, adopting a tax deferral policy for affordable rental housing property providing for the addition of provisions to the city code implementing ad valorem tax deferrals for the operation, rehabilitation, renovation, or development of affordable rental housing, providing for the repeal of ordinances in conflict, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing an effective date.
Because this is final reading, we will have an open public hearing. Is anybody in the audience want to speak to or against this ordinance? Okay, if not, we'll close the public hearing, move into adoption of City Council Ordinance number 2022-2235 for final reading.
Mr. Mayor, I make the motion to approve resolution ordinance 2022-2235 for final reading.
Second.
A motion and a second, any discussion by council? Ms. Oxford, you call the roll, please.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Ms. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Jernigan?
Yes.
Mayor Whit?
Yes. Okay, item 6 is recommended action motion to reaffirm the vote from December 19, 2022 on City Council Resolution 2022-137. Mr. Kenny, would you read that by title?
Yes. City Council Resolution 2022-137, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Lake City, Florida, amending the annual operating budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2021, period.
Okay, is there a motion, again, as to reaffirming City Council Resolution 2022-137?
Mayor, I approve City Council Resolution number 2022-137.
There's a motion and a second, any discussion? Ms. Oxford, call the roll, please.
Mr. Jernigan?
Yes.
Ms. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Sampson?
No.
Mayor Whit?
Yes. Okay, other items, none, new business, ordinances, none, resolution. We have City Council Resolution number 2023-001. Mr. Kenny, would you read that by title?
City Council Resolution number 2023-001, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Lake City, Florida, authorizing the appointment of Paul Dial as City Manager of the City of Lake City, Florida, for an indefinite term, and authorizing the city to enter into an employment agreement with Paul Dial.
Mr. Biden, you want to speak to this?
I hope it's not necessary, Mayor, but since I signed up for it, I will. Mayor, Council Glenn Alvaro, 1156 Northeast Bascom Norris Drive. As you all know, that Mr. Mayor, Mr. Hill, and Mr. Sampson, I did not miss a single meeting from the time that Mr. Heffenberger was fired until this day, when you had a discussion about the city manager form of government, or city manager. And I do think it's time for us to move on. You know, I think that what's in the agenda package, that Mr. Dow has agreed to the $150,000 and other issues in there that he agreed to, but that's it, that's his negotiated position. But I think the citizens of this community do not deserve to have a full-time city manager in place beginning this year. I think it'd be a disservice to the citizens of this community, 12,000 of us who live in the city limits, to go another day without a full-time city manager in place. And people need to come to this city and talk to Mr. Dyer as the city manager, not the acting city manager, not the interim city manager, but the city manager. You don't carry the same respect from the citizens when you're the interim. Or it's like being an acting coach, or you know, or some football player you bring in just for one game. Mr. Dyer showed commitment to this city. I think he deserves our appreciation tonight. And I would hope that you all will vote in the affirmative to approve the contract that he got in front of you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Lemley, do you want to speak to this?
Yes, I did. My concern is that there's been inconsistencies in connection with selecting a city manager. And sure, there's a salary range, but why do we need to start at the top? What if he wants more? You know, is that spelled out in the contract? Why are the same things that were done to vet previous city managers that have not been done to the current potential acting interim city manager, whatever you want to call him? But why have you guys skipped over that? Why have those things not been done to vet his background? Do you have an answer?
My answer is he's been here for a number of years. Pretty been good.
Thank you.
Just because that's the case, is it the right way when you have rules in place and you don't follow them? What's the point of having the rules?
Man, County,
I'm not arguing about it.
So if you're not gonna argue, you should mean that you should check this background out?
No, ma'am.
Thank you.
Can I speak? I didn't see, I wasn't paying attention with the number on there, but I do want the council to, listen to what the mayor did say. Yes, he's been here for what, over 10 years. He's been the city manager for 11 months now, and the city has been running pretty well under his direction. So yes, you all did a background check 10 years ago, not too much change. So we trusted him for 11 months to do the job. It's apparent that he can do the job, and he's doing the job pretty well. Because if there was an issue, y'all would have found out on month 2, month 3, month 4. We're on month 11. It's almost been a year. So we just gonna ask the man to just continue to be the interim or acting city manager after a year. Next month will be a year. It's 11 months. It's time for us to get off the pot.
Okay, the last one I have is Mr. Warren.
Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna basically reiterate some of the things that I said earlier. I think that Mr. Hill and Councilman Hill, and Councilman Jernigan, along with a city manager, with negotiating contracts, there's gonna be some back and forth. We have found a happy medium. And there's a Judas among us that may not want it to happen, but we found a happy medium. I think that people who have been sitting on this board long enough, as long as I've been coming to council meetings, I can go back 2 or 3 city managers, and ain't none of them have ever performed at the level of Paul Dow. All we've gotten from all these high qualified ICMA certificates and all these other stuff, all we've gotten was a bunch of lies, a bunch of politics, and a bunch of nothing. At least we got somebody who can bring stability, and he's a straight shooter, and he's getting the job done. And for the amount of money that is agreed on in the contract that these young council members have worked out, I think that is fair. I think it's reasonable. And I think it's time to move on and to let outside influencers from the county and people outside the county who don't live in the city and people who voted to elect people in the city to give us Paul Dow, I think those are the folks that we should be listening to. And I think Paul Dow deserves it. You showed me a better candidate than Paul Dow. We tried that. And guess what we at? Out of all that trying, guess who's still sitting over there? Paul Dow.
Okay, is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
I'd like to make a statement.
Okay, this is the last one, then we can tend to finish.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have 2 things. Stu Wilk, Columbia County Observer. As far as the negotiators, Mr. Jernigan and Mr. Hill, the Florida Public Records Law is pretty clear that those negotiations, when it was announced initially that they act as a liaison, those meetings needed to be noticed, and the public needed to be invited to those meetings. Now, I don't know if Mr. Kennan has an opinion on that, but that's pretty clear. Those opinions go back into the 60s. The court cases go back to the 60s and 1960s. And the Attorney General opinions go back to the 70s. That's pretty much established law. When one city councilman or county commissioner, whatever the case may be, acts as a liaison for the rest of the city council, and clearly they did because Mr. Hill came up with one thing and Mr. Jernigan came up with something else. So they were clearly acting in behalf of the city council, and then you guys have to make a decision. The courts have found that the public is entitled to see the complete process of the decision-making, not bits and pieces. So the Attorney General has come out in favor of that, and the courts have. So I would like to hear from Mr. Kennan about that. And as far as living in the city and not living in the city, I don't live in the city. A lot of my taxes go to the city. And I don't believe the city manager lives in the city. I mean, he's had 10 years to move into the city. And from what I can understand, he hasn't moved. So I understand that it's not required, as a member of the audience just said, as Ms. Vanessa George has said. However, if he loves the city so much, he's had plenty of opportunity to move here, and he hasn't. Thank you very much, Your Honor.
Mr. Witt, if I may, Mayor Witt. Number one, I disagree with the statement just being made. The two council persons were there to offer contract proposals. They were in no way intended, in my mind, to bind the council. If they were, we wouldn't be here tonight. In fact, we had those proposals that they made. They were addressed at the last meeting, and the issue was tabled until tonight. So I'll clarify the issue that's been raised regarding the appointment of a council member as a, quote, liaison to assist me in the negotiations of Mr. Dial's employment agreement. Initially, Mr. Hill was appointed, and then Mr. Jernigan was appointed. At no time did I perceive these council members to be appointed to speak on behalf of or have the authority to bind the council. I've always perceived their role as that of an advisor and to assist me in exploring various contract proposals for Mr. Dial. Any and all proposals were to be provided to the council as a body to be considered. In fact, the council was made aware of these proposals, debated them, and moved to table the issue of Mr. Dial's employment agreement to a subsequent meeting, which we are having tonight. In order to clarify those discussions, I would inform the council that as to my conversations with Mr. Hill and Mr. Jernigan. As to Mr. Hill, he was provided a copy of the draft of Mr. Dial's proposal, and his suggestions and proposals to the council were outlined in red in what you have in your packet as Exhibit B. As to Mr. Jernigan, he was provided with Mr. Dial's proposal and Exhibit B, which had the red line proposals from Mr. Hill, and his suggestions and proposals are contained in green on Exhibit C, which is provided to the council for consideration tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Sampson, you on your feet.
Mr. Mayor, before we start discussing Mr. Dial's prospective contract, I'd like to make a quick statement.
Okay.
And I want to quote Mr. Dial to start. Just to be clear, I've been asked to be the city manager of Lake City. I've declined that position because I talked to the mayor before I left. The mayor knows I'm applying for this position here. This is the position that I want, and I think it was fair I didn't think it was fair for me to accept the position in Lake City when I really had no intentions of wanting to continue there. This is from the YouTube video of July 16, 2022 at a special council meeting in Ketchikan, Alaska. The quote starts at the 2nd hour, 22nd minute, 38 second. In Mr. Dial's own words, he told the mayor he did not want to be city manager of Lake City. And he told the Ketchikan City Council he had been offered the job. Now, the mayor does not have the ability to unilaterally offer any position to anyone. Unless some council conversations were held out of the sunshine, this disclosure makes it clear that the ongoing relationship between the mayor and Mr. Dial is not an unbiased relationship. Mr. Dial's words give the appearance that the mayor offered him the city manager's position in May, June, or July when the council was engaging in a contract with a new headhunter, Colin Benzinger. This makes sense as the mayor slowed the process to a halt by not signing the Benzinger contract in a timely way to get the search process going. I have a question, Mr. Mayor. Did you in fact offer the job of city manager to Mr. Dial?
Okay, I'm tired of hearing about I slowed anybody
Did you offer
back
him the
up.
job?
Miss Sykes can tell you anything she's ever asked me to come and sign that was ready to be signed has been signed on time. That's for 17 years. I've never slowed up anything, and I don't know where that rumor came from.
For Mr. Benzinger.
Hey, that's disrespectful.
Well, Mr. Benzinger's wrong.
He was waiting on the signed draft.
Well, I don't know where it was, but it wasn't in front of me. If it had been in front of me, I'd have signed it.
Mr. Mayor,
I did have discussions with Mr. Williams. I've had discussions with Mr. Dial about the job. I've never took the audacity to say I had the power to hire anybody. It has to come to this board. But I have talked to Mr. Dial. I've talked to Mr. Williams and had lunch with Mr. Benzinger in Daytona. And just trying to get us a city manager here.
Mr.
And I've
Mayor.
never talked to one other council member about this.
Okay, but it's clearly been prejudicial in your support of Mr. Dial throughout this process, and I believe you have a conflict of interest where Mr. Dial is concerned. Because of this bias, I'm asking you to abstain from discussions and votes in the matter of Mr. Dial and his contracts. In addition, I've asked the city attorney if the lack of a background and credit check would expose the city to additional liability. The email I received back this morning from Mr. Kennan said that he is looking into it. Without this question being answered by our city attorney, I would make a motion to table this negotiation until we get the answer from Mr. Kennan in writing. And I would make that motion.
Mayor, I don't know that we can do anything until we do this.
It's already tabled.
I don't know what you have to do.
Okay, right now, we have, it's on the table. We'd have to have a motion to remove it from the table to take action on it tonight. What's the pleasure of council?
We'd have to ask.
I'll table it. Mr. Cannon, may I ask the attorney a question?
Sure.
So with that, information you're looking up, I guess we don't have that yet. You're still looking at it. I just asked you like Friday.
Yeah, we have some of the information. All of the city employees are covered currently with a $100,000 bond. That can be increased to however you want, $250, $500 for just a couple $100 a year. But currently, all city employees are covered with that type of bond and that amount. The insurance would be up essentially to the insurance company. It'd have to have some context to it before you get an answer to that. So I don't know that you could ever answer that unless a representative from the insurance company would go through different types of scenarios. So I'm not sure there's an answer to that particular question.
And so to get that answer, we would need a background check, a credit check, and an application for a job.
That I can't affirm because I don't know what,
We need a motion.
I don't know what insurance policy we're talking about or the context of the type of insurance. I mean, the bond insurance is the type I was focusing on, because that would be the one to me that would be applicable to the fiscal responsibility. And so he is covered currently under that bond, which can be increased a couple $100 a year, depending on the increments in which you would want to increase it.
We're here tonight. I'm gonna make a motion.
Before you make your motion,
Need a motion to take it off the table before we can start and get too far.
So we gotta make a motion to undo it so we can do it.
I make a motion to remove it off of the table.
second.
Okay, been a motion and a second. Any discussion by council? Ms. Sark, should we call the roll?
Ms. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Sampson?
No.
Mr. Jernigan?
Yes.
Mayor Witt?
Yes. Okay,
Now,
Yeah.
go ahead.
I'm gonna make the motion. I make a motion, I'm not pulling it back. I make a motion at this time to approve City Council Resolution number 2023-001.
okay, is there a second?
I second.
Okay, been a motion and a second. Discussion by council.
You need a clarification as to which, I'm assuming we need to confirm that we're talking about Exhibit C, which was the last green line version submitted.
Ms. Young? The city attorney would like clarification as to which exhibit you're referring to be attached to the resolution 23-001. Are you referring to Exhibit C that's attached to the resolution?
Exhibit C attached to the resolution.
Okay. And Mr. Jernigan, you second that? Okay. Now, back to discussion by council.
Mr. Dow, you have filled your role as an interim city manager. I'm gonna support Mr. Jernigan, what you and Mr. Jernigan agreed on. But my question to you is, I actually have two questions. The first one is, when you went to Alaska, how do I know? Again, I'm not knocking you for trying to better yourself, but with me supporting you, how do I know that you won't, in the next month or two, jump ship on it?
Well, Mr. Hill, when I took that interview for that job, that was in July. This council was in flux at that time. And there were several different avenues of, I didn't know if I was gonna continue to have a job, not have a job, because we were going back into whether we were gonna bring in another headhunter, what we were gonna do. There was discussion with some council members about whether I would stay or where I would go. But at that point, I was getting to the point with all the, conversations going on, I didn't feel very secure with staying here. That's why I took the interview to go there. And when you go to an interview, you usually try to do whatever you can to make it sound good within reason. And that's what I did. Now, as long as I feel that I have the support of this council, once I commit to something, I stick with it. And that's why I have stuck with this position for a little over, the 31st was a year I've been in this position. That's why I stuck with this city all through the years, through the good and the bad. The only reason I took that thing, like I said, was I didn't feel very secure at the time based on the direction the council was looking to go. We didn't have the 2 council members, and it was gonna be several months before that was filled. And I was looking to go back out again. So at that time, I was offered the position to go interview for, so I did. Once I commit to something, I committed to it. The only reason I did it at that time was I did not feel secure. As long as I feel secure in this position, I will stay here because I have a vested interest here in this city. I love this city. I love the employees. I love the area. I have family here. But at the same time, I still have to have a job. And if I don't feel secure about it, then I'm gonna look elsewhere.
And again, I would have felt better about it if you would have spoke to me as well as you spoke to the mayor. But again, I'm going to support you in that position as long as I'm in this position and you're here. You have my 100% support. But I would have appreciated if you, just like you told the mayor, which I have always supported you since you've been in that position. And if he just would have sat better with me, hear it from you than hear it from somebody else that you have went out and interviewed for another job.
Yes.
Okay, anything else?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, before you call the roll, I want to read into the minutes statement for additional comments. How can we move forward? No application, no background check, no credit check. This has been standard procedure when hiring city managers for a while. The one time I'm aware of where the city hasn't followed this, the city got a black eye. In addition, I have several issues with Mr. Dallas, city manager. Failure to follow HR procedures for promotions even after the city attorney Coberline advised him to do so. In the same interview in Ketchikan, Mr. Dow made comments on the grant the city, county, and HACO pursued that he was against it. This council in an open meeting held a vote and ordered staff to move forward, and yet Mr. Dow killed the grant due to his dislike of it. Mr. Dow also mentioned in the same clip that HACO would not provide enough insurance to allow the city to move forward and was leaving the city on the hook for hundreds of millions of dollars in liability. This can be viewed in that same interview starting at the 2:25:18 mark. Failure to follow normal management norms when dealing with certain directors and circumventing their authority by holding meetings with their subordinates to dig dirt and undermine authority. This has mostly been with female directors. The former city attorney said this could qualify as both age and sex discrimination. Failure to follow the directions of the council after the council voted last week to move forward with an appraisal on the airport property and extend HACO's lease by 1 year. Mr. Dow continued negotiating with HACO through their manager and lobbyist. He did this at the same time, and at the same time he engaged HACO's lobbyist to speak to the mayor and other council members on their behalf for a new counter proposed offer. Failure to advise the council on a proposed raise to the police union that he himself admitted in an email. Question in the email who authorized entering into the negotiation with the police union this time. Answer from Mr. Dow was Paul Dow, city manager. Authorizing payroll reimbursement in excess of guidelines and standard practices to a former city employee. This cost the city almost $8,000 in extra pay. Taking time off with pay. According to the last report I received, none of the requested time off in Mr. Dow's emails had been charged to the time off that Mr. Dow has available. This includes the time he spent traveling to and from his job interview in Alaska. And with that being said, I will not be supporting this, but I think the lack of background check is hugely, hugely disturbing.
Ms. Hodges, you call the roll, please.
Ms. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Jernigan?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yeah.
Mr. Sampson?
No.
Mayor Witt?
Yes.
Congratulations,
Okay,
Mr.
we're
Dow.
moving to Item 8 is City Council Resolution 2023-002. Mr. Kenny, would you read that by title?
City Council Resolution Number 2023-002, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Lake City, Florida, authorizing the city to enter into a state-funded grant agreement with the State of Florida Department of Transportation for the award of up to $502,156 from the Department of Transportation for the design, construction, and CEI for the resurfacing of Grandview Street from Faith Road to McFarland Avenue, period.
Mr. Warren, do you want to speak to this?
I guess I just had a question, Mr. Mayor. Grandview, whose district is that? That's Mr. Sampson's district. I bet he's gonna be in favor of that. Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, point of order, that comment's unacceptable.
I think that this is a good grant, and anytime we can make and improve our roads, I think we should do so. Thank you.
Okay. Is there a motion as City Council Resolution 2023-002?
I guess somebody else wants to speak.
Joshua Garner, 1080 Southwest Jamestown Glen. For the longest time, I've actually been meaning to bring this up, so thank you for whoever brought up this grant, because I live off of McFarland and Grandview, and it is the worst road, second to James Montgomery Avenue, right there on the side of GNC.
Yes.
I highly, 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 highly recommend, especially with the name of James Montgomery, that road get seriously considered to be moved up and on the process of being repaved or whatever needs to happen. I know a lot of people go to church right there at the Presbyterian. Plus it's a kind of cut road that a lot of people use, and it's awful. Almost as bad as Grandview is, especially if you've ever ridden a motorcycle on it. It's by far the worst road you've ever in your life been on. I thought the whole thing was gonna rattle apart. And it's not just because it was a Harley. So the one question, or the one thing I will add, I don't know if this has anything to do with the actual road itself, but I would also like to see the sidewalks within that same area, especially from where the utility department is, coming over to Summers. Obviously, it's a huge population area, so definitely consider looking at the sidewalks. In addition to that is the school zoning between LCMS and Summers is an absolute nightmare. There's signs that say speed limit's 20 miles an hour when children are present. Children are present 24/7. So it's really hard to tell, what that really means when it comes to the timing of that. There is one set of flashing lights. To my knowledge, it was pretty expensive to put up a second set, so it was never done. So they just have a crosswalk sign that, yes, there is from time to time a crossing guard there, but for the most part, there isn't. And there's little kids, going to Summers, crossing that area without a crossing guard. And to my understanding, there's a house right there in the corner that was annexed to the county. It's kind of strange because it's been abandoned for years. Not really sure what's going on with that as well. Maybe that's something that could be looked into. But yeah, sidewalks, and would hope that you could maybe create 2 separate school zones to alleviate the confusion of those school signs.
All right. Back to City Council Resolution 2023-002. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion for approval of City Council Resolution 2023-002.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Sykes, you call the roll, please.
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Jernigan?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Ms. Young? Mayor Whit?
Yes. Okay, next is item 9, City Council Resolution 2023-003. Mr. Ken, would you read that by title?
City Council Resolution Number 2023-003, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Lake City, Florida, authorizing the execution of the federally funded Community Development Block Grant CARES CDBG-CD sub-grant agreement with the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity to facilitate the rehabilitation of the existing Richardson Community Center for the use of COVID testing and vaccinations and reimburse the city for certain costs expended up to an amount of $2 million.
Okay, Mr. Holiday wants to address this.
Good evening, Corbett Allday with Guardian Community Resource Management, Offices Dade City for the record. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members, for letting me speak. We are the firm that wrote the application. This is a COVID special funded grant, one-time funded grant through the Department of Economic Development. And it is for things like rehabilitating the bathrooms to make them all touchless, and replacing the HVA systems for air purification, and also for sidewalks, upgrading sidewalks to ADA and lighting for safety. So these are the kind of activities that are being funded at the Richardson Community Center. Just a reminder, no activities can take place, including those that the county has proposed, until the environmental review, which is the desktop HUD environmental review. Without belaboring it, it takes about 90 to 120 days to do that environmental review. There's three or four comment periods in a row in that environmental review. So just be aware we can't do anything until that's complete. And I'm here for your question.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question on that. So are you saying we cannot build another bathroom, or the county can't build a bathroom out there during this process?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
So you saying they can't build a bathroom during this process or after this process?
After the process, they can.
They can?
Yes.
After the environmental review.
Oh, okay. I just want to again, City 8 has nothing to do with that now. Don't get this twisted. I just like to see a bathroom out there.
And I appreciate you coming and speaking.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Does anybody say? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have City Council Resolution 2023-003.
Mr. Mayor, I make the motion to approve resolution 2023-003.
Yep.
Second.
Mr. Mayor, I was asked to speak on that grant. Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
I was asked to speak on that item. I got number 9.
sure, go ahead.
Sorry. I don't know whether you just overlooked it or whatnot. Mr. Mayor, I just want to bring to your attention that if you notice, there's one commissioner not here, which is Commissioner Williams, which is also in District 1, which the Richardson Community Center sits in. And I spoke to Commissioner Williams on yesterday, and we had a long back and forth. So I'm aware of the environmental study that has to be done. And so we understand that because of that, the bathrooms have to be put on hold. But one of the conversations that was very interesting that we had, because I'm very passionate about the community and I'm very passionate about Richardson Community Center. And Commissioner Williams made me understand that his 4 counterparts that's here tonight, they're in a rush to gain access to Richardson Community Center, not him. They're acting as if somehow if they make an investment in it, they have to have it and own it. And he told me that, Sylvester, you can go back and look at the record, and he said, I told Robbie Hollingworth that he was full of SHI, you know what, that we have invested more money in property that we don't own in our budget. He said, go look at the budget. He said, go look at the county budget, and you will see that the county has invested money in many other facilities that they don't own, more than what they've invested in Richardson. And there's no city official has ever interfered with the 2028 lease agreement or have prevented the county from doing anything they wanted to do out at the Richardson Community Center. Now, unfortunately, what the commissioners and David Krause have done, they have stopped certain people and interfered with cornhole. They have fired and reclassified jobs and laid people off that were good for the community. They've done that. They've hurt the employment aspect of the Richardson Community Center, but no one has stopped them from investing money, and no one has told them they couldn't. And you don't have to own the property to invest in it. We have a grant. We need to implement the grant. We need to hold control of the property. And Mr. Mayor, you know for a fact we've dealt with this, and it is so minute and so minor, and they come at like it's such a big deal We have too many fish to fry. We just fought like the devil to get us a city manager. And now we got to worry about the following weeks, whether or not we're gonna save 600 jobs. And then we gotta create jobs. And we got a situation that's coming where we got to make sure that we get affordable housing. We got too many things to worry about in Richardson Community Center right now. We will get with them. I believe this council will get with them at the appropriate time. But for them to bully us and force us to say when we should do it, that should be a no-go, Mayor. And this council should not, they should just table this and say, we'll get with you. It's our property, we'll call you when we need you.
Mr. Mayor, there's a motion and a second on the floor.
Right, discussion by council. Secretary, call the roll.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Ms. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Jernigan?
Yes.
Mayor Webb?
Yes. Okay, item 10, I have several people signed up to speak on the issue of Richardson. There's not a resolution with it, but Mr. Bowden.
Mr. Mayor, you got a letter from the chairman of the board. I want to hear what they got to say first. I'll tell you what, I'm going to say what I got to say.
Mr. Mayor, can I make the presentation first and then get David to make the presentation? Then the comments might be more timely for what Mr. Bowden has to say.
Why is he making the presentation?
Well, because normally you have them read something by title, there's no resolution, so normally.
Now let them do the presentation, we'll know what they want.
District 10, it's in District 10.
Let me say this, if I can, and no disrespect, even though I've been disrespected. I am represented for District 10, and it's very disheartening
Amen.
to look on the agenda and not been informed of a question such as what we're here for tonight. I believe District 10 runs all the way around and circled around Richardson Community Center. So it just seems that we have overlooked District 10 and I believe even overlooked our city manager.
And
It's just, that's totally unacceptable. I believe I could have handled it. And if anyone can tell me otherwise, this is the time I would like to hear.
Mr. Mayor, can I make the presentation? So if you go to City Council Resolution number 2022-18, which is in the package, if you read the package on page 468, you'll see that the city and the county entered into an interlocal agreement where it says, and I quote, "The city and county desire to formalize their agreement that upon the closeout of the CDBG grant or any other circumstance relieving the city of the obligation to own the party, the city will donate and convey the Richardson Community Center property to the county. And the city and the county will memorialize that with an interlocal agreement." Now, the fact that certain council members are uninformed is not my fault. The fact of the matter is, it's in the agenda package. And so I have the floor, Mr. Mayor.
you do.
So the fact of the matter is, the city council has already agreed to this setup. So it makes sense to me that now that we are aware that we can do this in conjunction with the resolution already in place, that it makes sense that we would go ahead and move forward to do it. Why would we delay something when we can do it legally based on the resolution already passed?
The uninformed, let me touch that. The uninformed is that we have a substitute presenter. That's the uninformed. We don't need a substitute. Yes, I read it, and I'm informed now of what's contained in the information.
Well, what I'm gonna do is let everybody speak, and then we'll have a discussion of the council, we'll decide where we're headed. Mr. Bowden.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I really hope that 2023 will get off to a better start than this. I think we're doing all right with the city manager position. However, I just want to point to the last paragraph on the letter from Chairman Ford. It said the county is poised to invest substantially in capital improvement in Richardson this fiscal year. There's a growing concern about whether such expenditure are prudent when the county does not hold titles of the land in which the improvements are being made. My problem with that, Mayor, is that, and I'll say this to the county board before, that there seems to be a perception that Columbia County exists outside of the city limits. But any investment that the county make in Richardson community, they make it on behalf of the citizens of Columbia County. The last time I checked, I don't think, I could be wrong, I could be correct, I don't think there's a single county commission that live within the city of Lake City city limit. I don't think so. And secondly, that when it becomes a county property, it's also a city property. I never met anybody in my travel. I'm not the most real travel person in the world. I never met anybody tell me, oh, I'm going to Columbia County. How do I get to Columbia County? People all want to know, where is Lake City? How do I get to Lake City? So it appears to me that the county position is that they're getting ready to make an investment into some property that we need to own. And I don't see why that's relative. If you got an agreement you've been in with the city all these years, and if the agreement is that once the CBG grant is completed, it's an opportunity for you to do it, then why we need to do it now? There's no hindrance to stop the process from going forward, except for the fact that the county want to own the property. And I just can't see doing that until the present lease agreement that we have with the county is up. I think it expires in 2028 or whatever it does. But if the position of the county is they can explain to themselves that we're not going to invest anymore in Richardson because we don't own the property, then they talking about a piece of property. What about those of us who use Richardson? What about those people who go out there and participate in Richardson? If you don't want the property, then that's fine, then just walk away from it. But I don't think the city should just deed it back to them because they say we want to have control of it. And I don't see the necessity of it. I really don't. And it's amazing to me, for all these years, there seems to be a heightened interest in Richardson now. Because, and I'm not anti-pickleball. In fact, I intend to start playing pickleball. I need to do something to exercise. I don't know anything about cornball. I can't aim it, But it just seems to me, now you get another interest in the Richardson complex, then there's a big interest in having it. But where was that interest when it was nothing but kids out there playing basketball and softball? I mean, the commitment that the county has made to that facility, they made on behalf of the citizens of Columbia County, and I will say again, that those of us who live in the city, we're also county residents. And I think that's what you ought to keep in mind.
Okay. Mr. Krause, did you want to speak?
Mayor, council members, thank you very much. The county does not intend to disrespect any of you. We respect all of you. I came tonight because I was asked to come tonight. So that's why I'm here. I wanted to talk about this so that you understood the context in which my board, the county commissioners, wrote the letter. And they talked about it at their last meeting. They voted to submit the letter. So the letter was submitted because they voted to do that. So, Paul and I met with DEO on a Teams call back on December 16th. And we said, you never got the contract, we need to get you the contract. What do we need to do to make this grant work? Working with Paul, we talked with DEO, we talked about all the issues surrounding DEO. One of the main issues you need to understand is, one of the first things you're gonna have to do at some point is modify the grant, because even DEO admitted to Paul and I, City Manager Dial and I, that given the terms of the agreement you just approved, you cannot successfully complete the grant because the grant expires in that agreement September 2023. If you got to do environmental review, if you've got to do hiring somebody to do the design, there's going to have to be modifications. Similarly, the grant application was written back when Mr. Helfenberger was here, listed specific streets and specific projects. The actual grant agreement that you signed just keeps everything very broad and general and says improvements to the surrounding neighborhood. So the whole point is the majority of funding in this grant goes towards sidewalks, street lighting, or whatever improvements you deem necessary to make the center more accessible if you're going to do COVID testing or COVID vaccinations at the center. That's why it's a COVID grant. So the majority of funds isn't going to the Richardson Community Center building, it's going to the city or city streets and roads. Because we do have an agreement with you and because we do have the interlocal agreement that we all signed, inevitably this grant is going to require the city and county to work together. You need us to help work with you to get the air conditioning done, to get the touchless faucets done. You're going to be responsible for the roads and street lights, because I'm sure you don't want the county responsible for your roads and street lights. So inevitably, this has to be a joint project if it's going to work. Realizing that, HUD got it, or not HUD, DEO got a copy of the interlocal agreement that the board signed and understood the terms of the lease agreement, which they got in the application process. And they recognize that no matter who owns the Richardson facility, it's going to be a community center, and it's going to be a community center going forward. Because if it's not, then you're not going to be funded. There has to be a commitment, according to HUD guidelines, that if they're investing money in your community, that is going to continue beyond the end of the grant. So that's one thing, is this community center concept has to continue beyond the end of the grant, otherwise they'll make you pay the grant back. And ultimately, it's a city grant, it's not a county grant. So having said all that, we met with City Council Member Young on December 20th, Mr. Dial, all of the utility staff and your finance staff at the Richardson Community Center, and walked through the center and the surrounding neighborhood to determine what the city would like to do with the grant money, because we know we're going to have to do the modification. So again, we weren't trying to offend anybody. We weren't trying to exclude anybody. Like I said, City Council Member Young was at that meeting. She participated in the meeting. So we've always meant to be inclusive. That was never, ever the issue of we're trying to go around anybody. And if it was interpreted that way, I apologize. Like I said, I'm here because I was asked to be here. Having said all that, the interlocal agreement states that at the end of the grant, the city will deed the property to this county. Because inevitably we've got to be in this grant together, DEO said they see no issue with going ahead and proceeding with the deeding of the land, because that was the intent of the interlocal agreement. And so that is why my board, I shouldn't say my board, the Board of County Commissioners, I apologize for that, made the decision to ask to go ahead and proceed with executing the interlocal agreement, which would deed the land to Columbia County. We're still going to have to operate it as a community center. We're still going to have to operate it to the benefit of the community and the citizens of Lake City. That's all built in. So I guess we're respectfully asking you, or the chairman of the Columbia County Board of County Commissioners is respectfully asking you to go ahead, execute the interlocal agreement that was approved by both the City Council and the County Commission, and proceed immediately with deeding the property to Columbia County.
No, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Mr. Ford?
I don't need to speak. David said everything we need to say.
Okay. Mr. Kirby?
I was, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Move on here. Ms. George?
Okay, first of all, Mr. Cross said that no matter who owns it, it's gonna be a community center. You still have to operate it as a community center, so why the rush? Why are we rushing? Why you can't wait until the lease agreement? Why are we in such a rush? What's going on? It's something else going on. We just rushing. We gotta get this right now, because he said several times, we still gotta operate it as a community center, so why are we rushing? So what's the point? So why we can't let the lease go as it's going, if it's gonna operate the same? If the majority of the funds are going elsewhere and some on Richardson, why the county has to have ownership? What's the rush? It's always, okay, we need to get ownership of this. Why? We need to start looking at why. You saying everything gonna still be the same, so what's the rush then? If everything gonna be the same, let's keep it the same, how it is now. I'm troubled most of all by, we have Cross Hill, we have Kirby Hill, we have Murphy, we have Ford, we have Hollingsworth. We got 5 people from the county. The person who said they're gonna do the presentation is a city councilman. Like I said, the 6th commissioner, always doing the
Mr. Mayor, point of order.
I ain't calling you
No personal attack, Mr. Mayor.
I ain't call your name, but always doing the bidding for the county. That proves my point. I ain't even gotta say your name, because everybody know who you're talking about, because you the one wanna do the presentation.
Mr. Mayor, point of order. Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
All right. And the last one, Mr. Warren.
Mr. Mayor, point of order. He's threatening me right now.
Okay, everybody be respectful.
Mr. Mayor, that's not acceptable. He said, watch yourself, boy. That's not acceptable.
Mr. Mayor, let me tell you what's acceptable.
Don't allow it, Mr. Mayor. Don't allow it.
No, don't say anything derogatory. Don't address Mr. Sampson, just please address us.
Mr. Mayor, I'm a grown man. I got freedom of speech. I can call him a boy or a girl, and
Mr. Mayor, I disagree with that.
I disagree with that,
No, Mr. Mayor, I said I can. Up under the Constitution, I can.
but not in these meetings.
Right, under the Constitution, I have the freedom to call.
Okay, let's just move along, let's talk about Richardson.
And I made a promise to be with the decorum, but he's the one that's breaking the decorum.
All right, well, let's just move along.
You need your time.
Yeah, I'm gonna get my time. Mr. Mayor, this is precisely the issue. Mr. Kraus was invited, not by the person that represents District 10, but by a council member that has no idea about nothing about Richardson. Even Mr. Kraus don't know nothing about Richardson. It takes either Mr. Jernigan, Mr. Hill, or Ms. Young, if any question were to come about Richardson, to ask them any functionality of the Richardson Community Center. Moving forward, if everything is gonna stay the same, what is the rush? We have no need to deed them this property. And when DO start telling us what to do with our property? And city, we own that. There's a 1984 lawsuit. They wanted to tear that building down. Everybody was in favor of tearing it down. We got an injunction to save it for where it was at. And Mr. Bowden was on the city council and was a part of that lawsuit. And we're gonna preserve Richardson Community Center. Richardson Community Center is gonna stay in this community, it's gonna stay represented by a single member voting district, which is gonna always be predominantly black, because that 1984 lawsuit also said that it was gonna be a part of a single member district community. And this is not gonna be no takeover by members outside the community and outside that district. Mr. Mayor, I'm asking for this council to do the right thing. And the right thing to do is to hold this property, see the grant through, and at that time, have a workshop and hear from the people in the community that went there, grew up there, live and play there, as to what is in the best interest of that community center. It should not be decided by some county players. It should be decided by the people who didn't have no money and no shoes and had to walk to that school, people who didn't have no money, they had to go over there and play basketball on raggedy courts and everything else. These are the people that should be involved. So I ask that the majority of this council table this, tell the county, we'll get with them at the appropriate time, and it won't be today. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Cannon,
Yes, sir.
not to put you on the spot, but I read that, in fact, I talked to you about that ordinance.
Correct.
Resolution this morning. And we kind of discussed that you was gonna look into it. Does a modification need to be made to the grant or to the resolution to do anything at this time?
No, currently, as it sits now, the county or the city pursuant to the resolution and the interlocal agreement attached to that resolution, that being 2022-018, it legally requires the city, upon the release of the property from the obligations imposed upon the city, pursuant to the CDBG, the city will gift and convey the county to the property via a deed or deeds.
At the end of the CDBG?
Well, that's a matter of interpretation, because the resolution indicates that, and that's in the 5th whereas clause, the city and county desire to formalize their agreement that upon the closeout of the CDGD or any other circumstance relieving the city of its obligations to own the property, the city will donate and convey the Richardson Community Center property to the county. So if the DOE, if that's the right abbreviations, if they were to confirm that the city did not need to require ownership of the property through the execution of the grant, that could be interpreted as any other circumstance relieving the city of its obligations to own the property. And then the same sort of language is contained in paragraph 3 of the interlocal agreement that says, upon the release of the property from the obligations imposed upon the city pursuant to the CDBG, the city will gift and convey to the county via deed or deeds satisfactory to the city and county.
And I'm questioning Mr. Kraus or Mr. Dowd or anybody, but do we have anything right in saying that we could do that now?
I don't have anything in writing confirming from DOE other than what I've been told that through conversation and I guess the team meeting that they have indicated to the city and the county that they would relieve the county the city did not need to own it to move forward with it.
But
That's what I was told, I have not seen it right.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question for the attorney. So, Mr. Kennon, since we already have this interlocal in place, do we need to bring it back to complete the deed anyways if we get in writing that we're relieved because we already have an agreement in place?
Correct. This is the requirements between the city and the county as we sit here tonight.
So if something comes back in writing that says DEO absolves our need to own it, then the deed takes place whether we bring it back or not.
Pursuant to the resolution 2022-018 and the interlocal agreement, unless otherwise modified, that is correct.
Okay, Mr. Hill, unless you're through, are you through?
Well, I had one other point. So there are some obligations in the deed that's to be written in the interlocal agreement. The county does have to keep and preserve the Richardson Community Center for public and governmental uses and ensure improvements to the property are keeping up with the purposes. So in the event that they would cease using the property, then there's a reverter clause in the deed according to the interlocal agreement.
Okay, Mr. Hill.
My question is, if it's, everybody done heard this saying, if it ain't broke, why fix it? Now, at no time have I spoke with any county commissioner about trying to take Richardson Gym back. So my point is, what's wrong with seeing this lease agreement till when it's up?
Amen.
Mr. Mayor, I would like. Okay, all right. I don't know if council wants to take any action. I don't know that we can without something before us.
Mr. Mayor, I think the attorney clarified that all we need is something written from DEO that we're no longer responsible, then it is just deeded.
Well, we don't have that tonight, so
But that is correct, is that?
I'm saying as the resolution and the interlocal agreement, if DOE relieved the city of its obligations of ownership during the grant process, then that could trigger both the terms of the resolution and the interlocal agreement.
And this is in place, so we don't need to bring it back for a vote, it just can be deeded.
That is in place as we sit here tonight, yes, sir.
No, we need to modify that.
Go ahead, Roger.
Mr. Mayor, I like.
Thank y'all for letting me speak. We're here tonight just asking y'all to keep your agreement that you have with the county. Mr. Hill, with all due respect, that lease is obsolete. Basically, right now, we're working on an interlocal agreement with the city.
But we're not trying to take it back, but we're not trying to we're not.
I'm not saying you're trying to take it back. But what we're after tonight is to get y'all to go ahead and obligate you to give us the agreement that y'all agreed to do in meetings past when we're done this interlocal agreement. And it plainly states in the agreement that once the grant is complete or if the grant has nothing to do with the agreement, that y'all will release the community center to the county and convey the deed at that time.
No.
And that's what we're asking y'all to do.
And one more thing, excuse me for cutting you off. One more thing before you sit down. To everybody sitting in here, ain't nobody speaking for Jake. Jake is speaking for Jake. So I think that we just need to let this play out. And when it play out, however the chips fall, let them fall where they may.
So basically what you're saying is you're not gonna keep the agreement the city made with the county at this time.
I'm trying to keep the agreement.
Is that what you're saying?
I'm trying to keep the agreement.
That's what I interpreted it.
Well, again, you got yours and I got mine, Rocky.
Okay.
What I'm trying to say is I want to do what's right. And right now, we're not trying to take this from the county because the county has put too much money out there, and the city can't afford to run it.
So why would it be an issue?
So why?
In these other city counties? I mean, you're saying why do it? I'm saying why not do it? It's the same thing.
Until we get something right, I think.
Good night.
I believe that we can.
It's not the right time, is that what you said, Mayor?
Not tonight.
Not tonight, sir.
So when is the right time?
When I have something in writing saying that we're relieved.
So can I get a commitment from this council?
I-
That if we get something in writing from DEO that says the ownership.
Now, I wanna read what they say, they put contingencies in it, and that's all I'm asking, is just to see something in writing and read it. I'd be doing the wrong thing if I just said, yes, I'm gonna take whatever they put in writing and do something.
Right, thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Dial, I'll address that to you. Was you on that phone call when DEO said that the ownership of the, community center has no bearing on the grant?
You want me to answer, Mayor?
No.
Yeah, if you want to.
Yeah, I was in on the conversation. There were several statements that were made, and the statements that made is that they didn't feel that it would have a bearing on who owned the property. But I have not seen anything in writing.
And I'm not saying that conversation didn't happen, but people have tendencies to put things in that thing. I just wanna see something in black and white that says this is what the terms are, and I can just vote on that.
So I'm gonna just say, as far as I'm concerned, you give me my answer. Thank you.
Good night.
Okay.
Good
All right.
night.
I think that takes care of our business unless there's comments of council. If there's no comments, we'll be adjourned.
All right, good meeting.